Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to discuss one of the most powerful tools for improving your physical health, mental performance, emotional well-being, and overall quality of life, and that tool is sleep. Not just getting more sleep, but understanding how to optimize sleep quality and sleep-wake timing using science-based protocols that work with your biology rather than against it. Your brain and body operate according to powerful internal rhythms that influence energy, focus, mood, recovery, learning, and longevity. When those rhythms are aligned, you perform better in every aspect of life. When they're disrupted, even simple tasks can feel more difficult. In this discussion, I'll share practical tools that can help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, wake up feeling more refreshed, and improve your daytime energy and performance. These are simple, actionable strategies grounded in neuroscience and physiology that anyone can begin implementing immediately. So let's dive in and explore the science and tools for optimizing sleep and sleep-wake timing. Most people think about sleep as something that begins at night, when they turn off the lights and get into bed. But from a biological perspective, sleep actually starts much earlier. In fact, the quality of your sleep tonight is being shaped by signals that begin influencing your brain from the moment you wake up. To understand how to optimize sleep, we first need to understand the systems that control it. Once you understand those systems, many of the behaviors that improve sleep become intuitive rather than arbitrary rules. There are two major biological forces that determine when you feel awake and when you feel sleepy. The first is your circadian rhythm, often referred to as your internal clock. The second is something called sleep pressure. These systems operate independently, but they interact continuously throughout the day. When they are aligned, you feel alert during the day and naturally sleepy at night. When they become misaligned, you may find yourself tired during the day, wired at night, or struggling with inconsistent energy levels. Let's begin with the circadian system. Deep within the brain is a cluster of neurons that serves as the master clock for the entire body. This clock coordinates countless biological processes, including hormone release, body temperature, metabolism, immune function, alertness, and sleep timing. What makes this system particularly remarkable is that it relies heavily on environmental cues to stay synchronized with the outside world. The most powerful cue for this clock is light. Specialized cells in the eyes are designed specifically to detect changes in environmental light. These cells are different from those used for vision. Their primary job is to communicate information about light intensity and timing directly to the brain's clock system. When light enters your eyes in the morning, it triggers a cascade of signals that help establish the timing of wakefulness and sleepiness for the entire day. This is why the timing of light exposure matters so much. Your nervous system uses morning light as a reference point. It essentially says, this is the start of the day. Once that signal is established, numerous biological events begin unfolding on a predictable timeline. Hormones associated with alertness rise. Body temperature begins increasing. Metabolic processes become more active. Cognitive performance improves. Hours later, entirely different signals emerge that prepare the brain and body for sleep. What's fascinating is that the brain doesn't simply care about whether you are exposed to light. It cares about when that exposure occurs. Morning light, afternoon light, and late night light each produce very different biological effects. The timing provides information that helps your internal clock determine where you are within the 24-hour cycle. Now let's talk about the second system, sleep pressure. Sleep pressure is driven largely by the accumulation of a molecule called adenosine. Every hour that you remain awake, adenosine levels gradually increase within the brain. Think of it as a biological hourglass. The longer you stay awake, the more sleep pressure builds. Eventually, enough pressure accumulates that your brain strongly encourages sleep. This process is happening continuously, whether you are aware of it or not. From the moment you wake up, adenosine begins accumulating. Throughout the day, that pressure increases steadily. By evening, assuming you've been awake for a sufficient amount of time, sleep pressure should be relatively high. That high level of sleep pressure helps you fall asleep and remain asleep. One reason caffeine has such noticeable effects is that it interacts directly with this system. Caffeine doesn't remove adenosine from the brain. Instead, it blocks adenosine receptors temporarily. As a result, your brain becomes less sensitive to the sleep pressure that has accumulated. You feel more alert, even though the biological need for sleep still exists underneath the surface. Understanding this distinction is important because many people mistakenly believe they can eliminate sleepiness through stimulants. What they are actually doing is masking the signal. Eventually, the underlying biological processes reassert themselves. The interaction between circadian rhythm and sleep pressure determines much of your daily experience. Imagine that sleep pressure is steadily increasing throughout the day like water filling a reservoir. At the same time, your circadian rhythm is generating waves of alertness and sleepiness according to its internal schedule. When those two systems are working together, sleep feels effortless. You become naturally sleepy at approximately the right time, and waking up feels easier. However, when those systems become disconnected, problems emerge. For example, if someone stays awake late into the night under bright artificial light, the circadian clock may receive signals suggesting that the day is still ongoing. Sleep pressure may be high, but the clock is pushing in the opposite direction. The result can be feeling exhausted yet unable to fall asleep easily. Similarly, irregular sleep schedules can create confusion within these biological systems. Waking at dramatically different times from one day to the next shifts the timing of hormone release, body temperature cycles, and alertness rhythms. The body thrives on consistency because consistency allows these systems to coordinate effectively. One of the most important concepts to understand is that sleep is not merely a passive state. It is an active biological process governed by highly sophisticated mechanisms that evolved over millions of years. Every day, your nervous system is collecting information from your environment and using that information to determine when you should be awake and when you should be asleep. The good news is that these systems respond predictably to specific behaviors. Light exposure, wake times, activity levels, meal timing, and environmental conditions all provide inputs that influence the clock and sleep pressure systems. By understanding how those inputs affect your biology, you gain the ability to shape your sleep in a deliberate and systematic way rather than relying on chance. The first step toward better sleep is recognizing that your sleep-wake cycle is not random. It follows biological rules. And once you understand those rules, you can begin working with your nervous system instead of against it, allowing sleep to become more consistent, restorative, and deeply aligned with the way your brain and body are designed to function.
One of the most powerful ideas in sleep science is that the quality of your sleep tonight is heavily influenced by what you do during the first few hours after waking. Most people focus almost entirely on bedtime routines, supplements, mattresses, or sleep trackers. While those things can certainly have value, they often overlook the biological signals that set the timing of sleep many hours before the evening even begins.
The moment you wake up, your nervous system starts collecting information from the environment. It is essentially asking a question: what time of day is it? The answer to that question influences everything that follows, including your energy levels, hormone production, mood, cognitive performance, and ultimately your ability to fall asleep later that night. The most important signal your brain uses to answer that question is light. When natural light enters your eyes shortly after waking, specialized cells in the retina send information directly to the brain's circadian clock. These cells are not involved in forming visual images. Their purpose is to measure environmental light and communicate timing information to biological systems throughout the body. This process is remarkably powerful because sunlight contains an intensity and spectral composition that artificial indoor lighting simply cannot replicate. Even on a cloudy day, outdoor light is significantly brighter than most indoor environments. That difference matters because your circadian system responds strongly to light intensity. When you expose your eyes to natural light early in the day, several beneficial processes begin. Alertness increases, hormonal rhythms become better aligned, body temperature starts rising in a predictable pattern. The nervous system receives a clear signal that daytime has begun. Importantly, this morning light exposure also starts a biological countdown that influences when you'll naturally feel sleepy later in the evening. Many people are surprised to learn that morning light is one of the most effective sleep tools available. It sounds counterintuitive because it occurs so far from bedtime. Yet from the perspective of your circadian biology, morning light is often more important than anything you do at night. Consistency is another crucial factor. Your brain loves predictable timing. When you wake up at approximately the same time each day, your circadian system becomes more stable. Hormones begin rising and falling according to a consistent schedule. Sleep pressure accumulates more predictably. Energy levels become steadier. Sleep onset becomes easier. Unfortunately, many people unknowingly disrupt this system by maintaining dramatically different schedules throughout the week. They wake up early on workdays and then sleep several hours later on weekends. While this may seem harmless, it effectively creates a form of biological jet lag.
Imagine flying across multiple time zones every weekend and then attempting to readjust every Monday morning. That's essentially what the nervous system experiences when wake times shift dramatically from one day to the next.
A more effective approach is to establish a consistent wake-up time and maintain it as closely as possible. This provides a stable anchor for your circadian rhythm and improves the timing of numerous biological processes. Another important component of the morning protocol involves movement. Physical movement shortly after waking increases blood flow, elevates body temperature, and helps transition the nervous system from sleep into wakefulness. This doesn't necessarily require an intense workout. Even moderate activity can contribute positively to alertness and energy levels. Movement also creates a useful synergy with light exposure. When combined, these signals provide a powerful message to the brain that the active phase of the day has begun. Now let's discuss caffeine because it remains one of the most widely used performance-enhancing substances in the world. Most people consume caffeine immediately after waking. However, understanding the biology of wakefulness suggests a more strategic approach. During sleep, adenosine levels decline. After waking, natural alertness-promoting systems are already becoming active. Consuming caffeine instantly upon waking may not always be necessary because your body is already generating signals designed to increase alertness. Delaying caffeine intake for approximately 90 to 120 minutes after waking allows natural wakefulness mechanisms to operate more effectively. For many individuals, this approach helps reduce the likelihood of experiencing a significant energy crash later in the day. This does not mean caffeine is harmful or should be avoided entirely. Rather, timing matters. Just as the nervous system responds to the timing of light exposure, it also responds to the timing of stimulants. Hydration represents another often overlooked component of the morning routine. During sleep, the body loses water through respiration and other physiological processes. Waking up slightly dehydrated is common. Rehydrating early in the day supports cognitive performance, physical performance, and overall physiological function. What becomes clear when examining all these factors together is that morning behaviors serve as biological instructions. Every choice you make sends information to the nervous system about how it should organize the day ahead. Light exposure communicates that daytime has begun. Consistent wake times reinforce circadian stability. Movement enhances alertness and metabolic readiness. Proper hydration supports cellular function. Strategic caffeine timing complements natural wakefulness mechanisms. None of these tools are particularly complicated. In fact, their simplicity is part of their power. The nervous system evolved to respond to basic environmental signals long before modern technology existed. Light, movement, temperature, food, and timing remain among the most influential factors affecting human biology. When these signals are delivered consistently, the brain develops a more reliable sense of when to promote alertness and when to initiate sleep. As a result, energy becomes more stable throughout the day, focus improves, mood often improves, and perhaps most importantly, sleep begins to occur with less effort. Rather than viewing sleep as an isolated event that starts at night, it becomes more accurate to think of it as a process that begins the moment you wake up. Every morning provides an opportunity to strengthen the systems that govern sleep. By leveraging those early day signals effectively, you create the biological conditions that make deep, restorative sleep far more likely when evening finally arrives. Once the morning has established a healthy foundation for alertness and circadian alignment, the next phase of the day becomes about protecting and reinforcing those biological signals. Many people unknowingly do several things during the afternoon and evening that interfere with sleep quality, even when they believe they are doing everything right. The challenge is that sleep disruption often doesn't begin at bedtime. It begins hours earlier through small decisions that influence the nervous system, hormone rhythms, body temperature, and sleep pressure. One of the most important factors to understand is that your brain is constantly balancing alertness and fatigue. Throughout the day, sleep pressure continues to build as adenosine accumulates in the brain. Ideally, this process should proceed naturally, creating a strong drive for sleep by nighttime. However, certain behaviors can either enhance or disrupt this progression. Let's start with caffeine because its effects often extend much longer than people realize. Many individuals consume coffee, energy drinks, tea, or other caffeinated products late into the afternoon without experiencing obvious problems. They might say, "I can drink coffee at 6 p.m. and still fall asleep." But falling asleep is only one part of the equation. Sleep quality matters just as much, if not more. Caffeine can remain active in the body for many hours. Even when it doesn't completely prevent sleep, it may reduce sleep depth, alter sleep architecture, and decrease overall recovery. This means you might spend sufficient time in bed but still wake up feeling less refreshed than you should. A useful principle is to think of caffeine as a tool that should support daytime performance without borrowing energy from the following day. The later caffeine is consumed, the greater the likelihood that it will interfere with nighttime recovery. For many people, limiting caffeine intake during the latter part of the day creates a noticeable improvement in sleep quality. Another important variable is physical activity. Exercise is one of the most effective tools for improving sleep, cognitive function, mood, cardiovascular health, and overall well-being. However, the relationship between exercise and sleep is influenced by timing and intensity. When you exercise, body temperature rises, heart rate increases. Various hormones and neurotransmitters associated with alertness become elevated. These responses are beneficial because they prepare the body for physical performance and adaptation. Over time, regular exercise helps regulate circadian rhythms and improve sleep quality. People who engage in consistent physical activity often experience deeper and more restorative sleep. However, extremely intense exercise very close to bedtime may make it more difficult for some individuals to transition into sleep because the body remains in a heightened physiological state. This does not mean evening exercise is necessarily bad. Many people sleep perfectly well after evening workouts. The key is understanding your own response and recognizing that exercise timing can influence sleep readiness. Food timing also plays a significant role in sleep regulation. The body operates on multiple biological clocks, and meal timing provides important information to those systems. Large meals immediately before bed can create challenges because digestion requires energy and physiological activity at a time when the body is preparing for rest. When digestion remains highly active late into the evening, body temperature may stay elevated. The nervous system may remain more engaged, sleep onset may become more difficult, and sleep quality may be reduced. Allowing sufficient time between the final meal of the day and bedtime often helps facilitate a smoother transition into sleep. This doesn't mean going to bed hungry. Rather, it means giving the digestive system an opportunity to complete much of its work before the body enters its primary recovery period. Hydration is another area where balance becomes important. Throughout the day, adequate hydration supports virtually every biological function. However, consuming excessive amounts of fluid immediately before bed may increase nighttime awakenings due to the need to use the restroom. Frequent awakenings can fragment sleep and reduce overall sleep quality. The goal is to remain well hydrated during the day while avoiding large fluid loads right before bedtime. Naps deserve attention because they can either support or interfere with nighttime sleep depending on how they are used. Short naps can be extremely beneficial. They can improve alertness, cognitive performance, learning, and mood. For individuals who are sleep deprived, a brief nap can provide meaningful restoration. However, naps that are excessively long or taken too late in the day may reduce sleep pressure. Remember that sleep pressure is one of the major drivers of nighttime sleep. If a substantial portion of that pressure is relieved during the afternoon, the brain may not generate a sufficiently strong drive for sleep later that night. This is particularly relevant for individuals who struggle with insomnia or difficulty falling asleep. In such cases, reducing or eliminating late-day naps often improves nighttime sleep. Another concept worth understanding is that your nervous system responds to patterns. Repeated behaviors become signals that influence biological expectations. If afternoons consistently involve bright light exposure, movement, productive activity, and healthy engagement with the environment, the brain develops a stronger distinction between daytime and nighttime states. This distinction is extremely important. Modern life often blurs the boundaries between day and night. Artificial lighting allows us to remain active around the clock. Digital devices provide endless stimulation. Work, entertainment, and communication are available at all hours. While these conveniences offer tremendous advantages, they can also create confusion for biological systems that evolved under predictable cycles of sunlight and darkness. As the day progresses toward evening, the objective is not merely to avoid things that harm sleep. The objective is to create conditions that allow the body's natural sleep mechanisms to emerge at the appropriate time. Every decision regarding caffeine, exercise, food, hydration, and activity patterns contributes to that process. The nervous system is constantly collecting information and adjusting its expectations accordingly. By understanding how these afternoon and evening behaviors influence sleep pressure and circadian rhythms, you can create a daily structure that supports both high daytime performance and deep nighttime recovery. The result is not only better sleep, but also improved energy, focus, mood, and resilience throughout every aspect of life. As the day transitions into evening, the nervous system begins preparing for one of the most important biological processes in human health, sleep. This transition is not something that occurs instantly when you lie down in bed. It is a gradual shift involving changes in brain activity, hormone release, body temperature, metabolism, and autonomic nervous system function. Understanding how to support this transition can dramatically improve both sleep quality and overall recovery. One of the most powerful factors influencing this process is light exposure. Throughout human evolution, the setting sun signaled the beginning of a physiological transition from wakefulness to rest. As environmental light decreased, the brain received information indicating that nighttime was approaching. Today, however, artificial lighting allows us to remain exposed to brightness long after sunset, and this can significantly affect sleep-wake timing. The nervous system is particularly sensitive to bright light during the evening and nighttime hours. Light entering the eyes sends signals to the circadian system that influence the timing of various biological processes. When exposure to bright light occurs late in the evening, the brain may interpret this as a signal that daytime is still ongoing. As a result, the release of sleep-promoting hormones can be delayed, alertness may remain elevated, and the transition into sleep can become more difficult. This does not mean that every source of light must be eliminated. Rather, it highlights the importance of managing light exposure intentionally. Dimming household lighting during the evening can help create a physiological environment more conducive to sleep. Reducing unnecessary exposure to bright overhead lights and intensely illuminated screens may also support a smoother transition into nighttime biology. The goal is not perfection. The goal is simply to provide the nervous system with signals that accurately reflect the time of day. Temperature is another crucial factor. Many people are surprised to learn that successful sleep is closely tied to body temperature regulation. Throughout the day, core body temperature follows a predictable rhythm. During waking hours, temperature tends to remain relatively elevated. As bedtime approaches, the body begins initiating a gradual cooling process. This reduction in core temperature serves as an important signal that promotes sleep onset. In other words, the body often needs to cool down in order to fall asleep efficiently. This is why sleeping in an environment that is too warm can interfere with sleep quality. Excessive warmth may make it more difficult for the body to achieve the temperature changes associated with deep sleep. A cooler sleeping environment often supports faster sleep onset and more restorative sleep. The exact temperature preference varies from person to person, but most individuals benefit from a room that feels slightly cool rather than excessively warm. Interestingly, warm showers or baths taken before bedtime can also support sleep. Although this may sound contradictory, warming the skin can promote heat loss afterward, helping core body temperature decline more effectively during the period leading up to sleep. Another critical aspect of sleep optimization involves the sleeping environment itself. The brain is highly responsive to environmental cues. Noise, light, temperature fluctuations, and disruptions can all influence sleep architecture. Even when awakenings are not fully remembered the following morning, these disturbances may reduce sleep quality. Creating a sleep-supportive environment means minimizing unnecessary stimulation. Darkness helps reinforce nighttime signals. Quiet surroundings reduce interruptions. Comfortable bedding supports physical relaxation. Stable environmental conditions allow the brain to allocate more resources toward recovery rather than monitoring the environment for potential disturbances. The concept here is relatively straightforward. The sleeping environment should support recovery rather than compete with it. Another factor worth discussing is mental activation. Modern life provides constant access to information, stimulation, and novelty. Social media feeds, email notifications, entertainment platforms, and digital communication can keep the brain engaged late into the evening. While these activities may seem relaxing on the surface, they often maintain levels of cognitive activation that are inconsistent with the natural transition towards sleep. The nervous system does not simply respond to physical signals, it also responds to psychological and cognitive demands. When the brain remains highly engaged in problem-solving, emotional processing, decision-making, or stimulating content consumption, it may remain in a state of heightened alertness. This can make it more difficult to transition into the slower, calmer neural patterns associated with sleep readiness. Developing a consistent pre-sleep routine can be extremely helpful in this regard. The brain learns through repetition. When certain behaviors occur consistently before sleep, they gradually become associated with the sleep process itself. Reading, gentle stretching, relaxation practices, journaling, or other calming activities can serve as signals that help prepare the nervous system for rest. Consistency is one of the most powerful principles in sleep biology. The body thrives on predictable patterns. When bedtime routines, sleep schedules, and environmental conditions remain relatively stable, the nervous system becomes better at anticipating sleep. Hormonal rhythms align more effectively. Temperature cycles become more predictable. Sleep onset becomes smoother. One of the greatest misconceptions about sleep is that it should simply happen automatically regardless of circumstances. While the human body is certainly designed for sleep, modern environments often provide conflicting signals that interfere with natural biological rhythms. The good news is that relatively small adjustments can have substantial effects, reducing evening light exposure, supporting healthy temperature regulation, creating a recovery-focused sleep environment, limiting unnecessary nighttime stimulation, and maintaining consistent routines all work together to strengthen the body's natural sleep mechanisms. What makes these tools particularly powerful is that they leverage biology rather than fighting against it. Instead of forcing sleep through willpower, they create conditions that allow the nervous system to do what it was designed to do. When these conditions are consistently present, sleep often becomes less of a struggle and more of an automatic biological response. The brain recognizes the signals. The body follows its natural rhythms. Recovery processes activate efficiently, And night after night, the foundation is laid for better physical health, improved cognitive performance, emotional resilience, and sustained energy throughout the waking day. As we wrap up, remember that sleep is not simply a period of rest. It's the foundation upon which mental clarity, physical performance, emotional stability, learning, recovery, and long-term health are built. The good news is that optimizing sleep doesn't require complicated interventions. Small, consistent actions such as managing light exposure, maintaining a regular wake time, optimizing your environment, and respecting your body's natural rhythms can produce significant improvements over time. The key is consistency. Your nervous system responds to repeated signals, and the more consistently you provide those signals, the more effectively your biology can support deep, restorative sleep. Thank you for joining me today. I hope these tools help you improve not only your sleep, but also the quality of your waking life. Until next time, take care of your brain, take care of your body, and most importantly, prioritize your sleep. Thank you for watching.